All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we deliver some good news for you here in mid-November on your Niners. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. 2 locations right now with a third on the way. That's right, they're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera, soon to be coming to Petaluma. They're open from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Get some brisket, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. And thanks to them for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Niners. Niners coming off a win against Arizona. Playoffs are very much alive. 7-4, playing pretty good ball, but they've got some major injuries on defense. Obviously, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and a lot of people. And they couldn't stop anybody this last week. And their defense, 67 dropbacks. They got 13 pressures and no sacks on a very immobile Jacoby Brissett. So they have no pass rush. No pass rush, banged up linebackers, a very young secondary. So while they're 7-4 and look like they're headed towards the playoffs, they also have a defense that's pretty diminished and is leaning on a lot of young players, and there's a lot of flaws, and they can't rush the passer, and they can't speed up the quarterback. And so there's a lot of skepticism about how far they can go in the playoffs. And I understand that, and I think that's reasonable, to be completely honest. I'm one of the people who's somewhat skeptical. Hopeful, but skeptical. The NFC looks wide open. The league in some ways looks wide open, and it is kind of a war of attrition, and you just don't know how, who's going to be standing at the end of the year. Every week that goes by, somebody else goes down. Buffalo lost Ed Oliver. We saw the other day, huge losses across the league. I mean, Tucker Kraft went down for Green Bay. That's a really good young tight end done for the year. So teams are losing players. It's a war of attrition. It's all about how deep you are. And the 49ers have proven that they have 2 quarterbacks they can win with. Mac Jones has looked good. Brock Purdy has come back, and he looked very good against Arizona. And so there's a lot of encouragement that they're going to be able to put up significant points offensively. Can they put up enough offensively to cover for their shortcomings? Defensively, only time will tell. But let's talk a little bit about something that I thought we saw this week, a little change from what they've done that I think reveals a mindset and one that I think is the right way of thinking. The Niners had an opportunity to play the veteran Kevin Givens at defensive tackle and go with the veteran Cleveland Farrell, who had been one of their better pass rushers in the previous game, and instead opted to go with Robert Beal and CJ West. And I just, I know there were some people going, why? Why no Cleve Farrell? Why no Kevin Givens? And I just think the Niners made the right move there. Go with your youth. Play the young players. You don't know if you're going to be able to win the Super Bowl this year. I would say winning the Super Bowl is going to be a long shot. Success this year is going to be deemed by not just how far you go, but how well you coach up your young players. And I'm going to share the screen and show you the Niner depth chart that I highlighted. And to me, this is the game within the game, right? This is the personnel side of the thing. All right, here's the 49er depth chart. They got 30 guys, and they got to develop these 30 guys to have this year be a success. Now, who are these guys? Let's take a look first on the offensive side. Make it as big as you can possibly make it. There we go. All right, on the offensive side, you got 3 receivers. Supposedly they're going to activate Cowing's practice window after the bye week. Maybe he will get back in the field. I'll say this. He's been nothing so far, but if you watched him at Arizona, if you watched him at UTEP, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of speed, and he's been a big play guy. So does he need to get stronger? Yes. Does he need to stay healthy? Obviously, that's an issue with the hammy. But Jacob Cowing was a great player in college. So they still have hope for him. Jordan Watkins, their 4th-round pick this year out of Ole Miss. Tremendous prospect with 4.3 speed. Ricky Pearsall, their 1st-round pick in 2024. Then on the offensive line, you got a couple young guys. You wish you had more there to develop, but definitely between Dom Pooney and Connor Colby, you got a couple guards that you need to develop. Colby's already gotten a little run. Now he's watching. Pooney's obviously has struggled in this second year, to be completely honest about it. And hopefully he can rebound and get a little healthier as the year progresses. Tonjes has done enough to provide, put himself on this list. And then, you got your all four quarterbacks, Purdy, Mac Jones, Adrian Martinez, Curtis Rourke. These guys are all young. They're all getting better. When I say developing, the arrow's pointing up. These guys are all football players getting better. And then you got Isaac Guerrero and you got Jordan James. So that right there, if you count all those players, that's 11 or 12 offensive players right there. 12 offensive players that they need to develop. That if these guys develop, that's going to be a real positive for the team. It's even more stark when you look at the thing on the defensive side. Let's look at the defensive side. I count 18 defensive players that are truly getting better. Now the first team line of Huff, Elliott, Kalia Davis, Sam Aquinas. Kalia Davis, by the way, coming off a terrific game. Aquinas been really a nice surprise. Jordan Elliott's having his best year of his career, and Huff has found a new home. So these four veterans are doing the job up front. For the most part, they're not Bosa. They're not getting to the quarterback, as we mentioned. They're not getting a lot of pass rush out of these guys. But Kalia Davis has given them probably more than the other guys. Collins and West are the guys you invested a second and fourth in. They need to develop. Keon White, I think, is a great scheme fit. He needs to develop. He's a young player. Robert Beal is a tremendous talent. And they're just pleading with him to develop. You got Sebastian Valdez, Evan Anderson, and, of course, Mikael Williams next year when he gets healthy. So right there, you got 7 defensive linemen, really young defensive linemen that you like. Anderson's good against the run. Valdez, I think, is a real prospect again as a pass rusher. We know what Mikael looks like. He's a real edge-setting monster who can rush from inside. And then you got your inside duo of Collins and West. I'm very impressed with them. They continue to improve. And, there's some talent there. I mean, you got 7 guys to develop. At linebacker, D. Winters, 2023, a 6th-round pick. So he's a young guy still. Tatum Bethune, 2024. And then Nick Martin. And we'll talk more about Nick Martin in a minute. But Nick Martin got out there. He played, 14 snaps? He had 7 tackles, 5 solo. Play Nick Martin. For crying out loud, you're going to play Luke Gifford over Nick Martin? If I don't care if I'm the one who's got to tell Brant Boyer we're not playing Luke Gifford over Nick Martin, then that's the way it's going to go. But activate both of them. Find another roster spot. Let Luke Gifford do what he does on special teams. He's a really good special teamer. If you watch the coverage units, he makes a lot of tackles on special teams. Nick Martin needs to play. He absolutely needs to play. I probably could have highlighted Curtis Robinson as well. I don't really think of him as a young ascending player, but he is relatively young. But you got roughly 20 players on defense here. Bunch of guys. In the secondary is where they really are. Renardo Green, Darrell Luter, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, Marquis Siegel, Upton Stout. And they got a couple other guys coming. Jacob Robinson, who's a 4-3 corner who played at BYU, who's got a lot of talent. Derek Canteen is an athletic safety prospect who's a year away. So they got a lot of talent. They got 20 guys on 18 to 20 guys on defense. You got about 12 guys on offense. These 30 guys, do they develop these guys? Not this year. Obviously, you want to go to the playoffs and hopefully you win a playoff game. Maybe you make this unbelievable, Cinderella run to the Super Bowl. No Warner, no Bosa, against all odds, no Mikael. And they did it anyway. They leaned on their backup quarterback to, help them stay afloat. And then Brock Purdy to the rescue. And they started scoring 35 a game. And the young defense came of age. And Robert Saleh said something. He's like, we want them to be playing their best ball in January. And I love that line because there's a swagger and a cockiness to that line. That's like, hey, we expect to be playing football in January. And we're talking like that. We're thinking like that. And that's who we are. That's like that's our DNA as a franchise. We're going to be there in January. I love the way he said that this week. We want our young guys to be playing their best ball in January. And that's the deal. Get a little bit better, get a little bit better, get a little bit better. You're in mid-November. You got 6 weeks. Get a little bit better, a little bit better. All of a sudden it's playoff time. And now let's see. Let's see who's got it. It's a war of attrition. There's a lot of athletes on that. You think of the defensive side of the ball, the athletes that the Niners have that haven't done anything yet. We haven't seen anything from Sebastian Valdez. Anything. Nothing. He hasn't yet to play, yet to really contribute anything. Nick Martin, barely done anything. We'll talk about him in a second. He's a very impressive player. Darrell Luter, Marquise Siegel. These are good young DBs. They haven't really done anything yet. So, I mean, Siegel's done, they both have done a little. I shouldn't say that. They both have done a little. But, I mean, they've given flashes. But they need more coaching. They're gems that need more polishing. And then on the offensive side, of course, I mean, I would love to see, instead of these one-sided games, let me see a little bit of Garendo touching the ball. I mean, Garendo's a great receiver with huge speed. There were times this summer when Isaac Garendo, like if you didn't know better, you'd be like, that's the best guy on the team. It's like, they just threw that guy the ball in the flat and he just ran down the sideline and, 85 yards and went untouched. And it's like, what? I mean, that Garendo is a freak of an athlete. They got to find a way to get the ball in his hands as a receiver because I think he could be a huge mismatch as far as creating a big play. So we'll see. We'll see if Shanahan gets, that's one of the big questions. I'd love to see between the combination of Watkins, Cowing, Garendo, and Jordan James. I'd like to see some of that speed hit the field at some point, maybe even a little bit more of Sky Moore from scrimmage. But anyway, there you go. 30 guys right there that the 49ers potentially could develop. And that is what will make this season a success or a failure. Let's talk about Nick Martin, though, because I think Nick Martin's a really interesting player. Now, I love this guy coming out in the draft. We're talking about a smallish linebacker, but 4.53 speed, 26 reps at 225. That's more reps than CJ West had. This guy's big. This guy's not big, but he's fast, explosive, and dominant athletically. He's a kid who's from Texarkana, Texas, right there. If you've ever been there, kind of a little dusty town on the Texas-Arkansas border. And he played both sides of the ball in high school. He had offers to play both running back and linebacker in college. Chose Oak State and became all Big 12. Was a great player at Oak State. I mean, big-time player. Named captain by his teammates. Got consideration for the Bednarik Award, the Lombardi Award, the Nagurski Award, the Butkus Award. 16 tackles for loss, 20th in the FBS, his final year there. He good. Not only could this guy play the run, this guy attacked the quarterback. So, really, really good player. Oklahoma State, 140 tackles in 2023, the most by any Oklahoma State player since 1984. Yeah, it's a long time. And the most by a Big 12 player since 2018. He had 83 solo tackles. It topped the entire conference and ranked third among all FBS players in 2023. So, I mean, Martin he's an undersized heat-seeking missile. He's a little over-aggressive. He needs to be coached up. Sometimes he overruns stuff. We saw it in the preseason. But man, I mean, really, really special player. And, heat-seeking missile type player. And 4.5 speed, plays fast. You've seen the explosiveness. This guy's got sideline to sideline tackle making ability. I asked Johnny Holland this summer, I'm like, Johnny, what do you like about Nick? And he's like, you know what? There was a play the other day where he was on the right side, over on the sideline. The play went the other way, and he crossed the field and ran it down. And he's like, the range is off the charts. So there's learning to do, but man, high ceiling. They got to find this guy should be at worst, an awesome player in the sub package, an awesome special teamer, an awesome role player. At worst. I mean, this guy's got speed. He's got explosiveness, explosive athleticism, good tackler, strong run defender. This guy's a downhill, attack the ball carrier, detonate, blow your stuff up. He excels. I mean, the only thing that's frustrating is that the Niners, who have no pass rush, have yet to use this guy as a pass rusher. Use this guy as a pass rusher. He excels as a pass rusher. He's a great blitzer. He's got great ability and speed to close on anybody. the running back, the quarterback. This guy, defensive football is about closing space. Nobody's closing space like this guy. This guy can fly. And I get it. I get it. There's nuances to playing linebacker, and he doesn't have all of them down, and he's going to give up some big plays, and they're going to get him isolated and confuse him, and they're going to have some shifts and motions, and there's going to be a busted play, and there could be a touch. I get all that. I get all that. What I'm saying is find a way to get this guy on the field and run him at the quarterback on the money down. The money down's third down. You get to some third downs, there's got to be a way to devise some kind of sub package to get this 5'11", 230-pound missile on the field and run him at the quarterback. Because I really think this is one of the better pass rushing inside backers I've seen. You've seen it for years in the NFL. Bobby Wagner's really good at it. And there were guys before him that were really good at it. You know, those guys who just they drop into coverage and they just hover, and then they just shoot a gap and bring down the quarterback. And Nick Martin's got that ability. So I want to see more Nick Martin for sure. And, you know, but he's just, as I said, one of 30 guys on this defense that really just need to be coached up and developed. Are the 49ers going to win the Super Bowl? They get a shot. They got a shot. You know, it's not a great shot, but they got a puncher's chance for sure. So what is this year really about? It's about developing the youth. It's about developing the roster. The other point I wanted to make before we get out of here, you go look at some of the most incredible teams we've ever seen. And just to me, it's like when you get a lot of players at the same time coming up together, that's when you're really scary. Jim Finks, who's the old general manager of the Chicago Bears, did a great job in the late 70s. He had great drafts like 77, 78, 79, 80, put together all these players, 81, 82, 83, and it all led to the 85 Bears. And, you know, they were all players drafted by Jim Finks between like 79 and 84. All these guys, all these incredible talents. And the 85 Bears were arguably the most destructive defensive football team we've ever seen. And what did they have? They just had too much talent and scheme all at once, and they just overwhelmed teams. I think of the Niners' greatest run with Bill Walsh. I mean, it was on the heels of getting Jerry in the draft in 85, but it was the volume draft in 86, which netted them like 8 starters, which led to them having an incredible year in 87, winning it all in 88, winning it all in 89, losing the NFC Championship game in 90. And, you know, basically a lot of those same guys from the 86 draft were still the core in the early 90s, battling the Cowboys with Steve Young and eventually climbing to the top of the mountain in 94. So Bill Walsh, what did he do? He got that volume draft of 86 surrounding the greatest receiver of all time who arrived in 85. And the Niners rode that to the greatest, the greatest run in the history of the franchise. I mean, it started in 81, but where the Niners were most dominant was from 86 through 94. And that was all that 86 draft core and Jerry Rice in 85. So when you get a lot of players together at one time, Dallas made the Herschel Walker trade. They got a bunch of players and picks, and Jimmy Johnson turned them into a lot of good young players. Now, were they awesome players? No. Some of these guys, Dixon Edwards and some of these, but I mean, they had some great ones in there, including Emmett, Russell Maryland, Darren Woodson, you know, and more importantly, Dallas had a large young core of players that all grew up together, and there they were in the early 90s as a dynasty. And then if you look at the team that's improved the most recently, as far as going from, you know, roster, just looking at rosters and talent on the rosters, it's the Houston Texans. And how did they improve so quickly? Because they traded Deshaun Watson in one of the most one-sided trades in history, and they got all kinds of young players and picks and turned that into Will Anderson and several other Derek Stingley and all these great young players. Houston is not quite there yet offensively, but they've got a young core on both sides of the football that's the envy of the league. And that brings me to the Niners, because right now That's what the Niners have. They've got literally 30 young players on their roster. Not all of them are going to make it. Some of them are going to be bust. Some of them are not going to make it at all. But they've got a core of 30 pretty good young players that have all been drafted in the last 2 or 3 drafts. And this year is about coaching those guys up. You know, you're going to take your shot at the playoffs, and in the playoffs, you'll take your shot at the Super Bowl. And, you know, it's a long shot, but we'll see. But the real story and the real success this year is developing a 30-man core of young ascending football players. And if they can develop them correctly, and maybe have a good run in the 26 draft, you know, the 49ers could show up next year with a really exciting, talented, deep roster on both sides of the ball. All right. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sleeper. 49er football all season long, and the Krug Show is sponsored by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. And thanks to Sleeper, thanks to Pig and a Pickle, and thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube,